A huge Christmas Day slate coming up this weekend. We have the biggest questions for each game. Will LeBron or Luka get more help? And can the Grizzlies get a Christmas miracle? All of that and much more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, and I'm joined by Adam Mares, and we come to you every Friday here on the Locked On NBA feed, however you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We've got 5 games on Christmas. It starts at noon Eastern time with Philadelphia and the New York Knicks, and then we get the Lakers and the Mavericks, the Bucks, the Celtics, the Grizzlies versus the Warriors, and then finally the late game, the Suns versus the Nuggets. So what we're going to do on today's show is ask and try to answer the 5 biggest questions going into each of these games for the teams involved. So let's just get right into it, Adam. We're going to start with the first game, Sixers versus the Knicks. And to me, this is 2 teams that are playing really well lately. I know the Knicks are coming off of a loss, but whatever. They've been playing really well lately. They seem to be getting their season together. The Sixers, ditto for them. They're playing well. These are 2 teams riding high, probably the highest they've been all season, coming together on Christmas. My biggest question is whether or not the Knicks in their power game can match Joel Embiid, because the Knicks look like a Thibodeau team lately. They're second in defensive rating over their last 10 games, number 1 in rebound rate. They're allowing the 4th fewest points in the paint. And then on the other hand, there's Joel Embiid on the other side. So that's sort of the matchup to me is Embiid versus just like the Thibodeau Knicks now.
Well, these are teams that in the month of December ranked number 2 and number 3 in net rating. And you mentioned that the Knicks look like a Thibodeau team. They're also scoring, though. This is the difference. They're not just a great defense, number 2 in the month of December, but they've also been putting up points and getting big productions, including from RJ Barrett, who's been a little bit hot lately. So to me, this should be, I don't think if you would have asked me this 10 days ago, this would easily have been the game I was least excited for. Maybe planning on sleeping in a little bit on Christmas just to avoid this one. But I think this one is actually shaping out to be arguably the best game, the 2 hottest teams that are playing on Christmas Day, at least at this point. So I think it will be a good game.
My only thing with the Knicks is they've got some guys who, and I think this has mostly been helpful for them, guys with stuff to prove, right? RJ Barrett with a new contract, and he got off to a slow start. And like you said, he's starting to round into form there. Jalen Brunson, his first year in the Knicks. Julius Randle looking for a bounce back campaign after last year's disappointing season. Like I said, I think most of that has been helpful. Is there going to be a little bit of a Christmas Day, like trying to grab the mic kind of thing going on with these Knicks? Like, is it going to be like Jalen Brunson? This is my coming out party. This is where I announce I'm the king of New York. And Julius Randle's like, hey man, I've been here. Like, this is my team. And I don't know.
It's a good question. I wonder. I mean, these guys have been here before, so I think they've actually played on Christmas. You're right that this Knicks iteration, the Knicks just get the Christmas billing for whatever reason. I mean, we know the reason. They're a big market.
It's more about who's going to be on the sideline than on the court.
Right. But I don't know. I think the more important story, and look, it's been a soft schedule. I think this is actually the story of the NBA season so far. There hasn't been teams that have completely emerged as the favorites in either conference. And you look at this Knicks team who just 2 weeks ago at the start of the month was 10-13. They opened the month 10-13, a loss against Dallas. And since then they've won, I believe, 8 of their last 9. And now they're 18-14. So you go from a play-in, hanging on to the play-ins, and now one of the premier teams in the West. That just kind of shows you. But again, you look at the schedule for both Philadelphia and New York. There have been a lot of sub-500 teams. So both of these teams have kind of had a get-right December against bad teams, and then they're going to collide with each other on Sunday on Christmas Day as a real test for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, even look at the rest of the teams in the East. Boston, beefed up their record. I mean, the Celtics are good. We're not debating that, but they really took advantage of a soft schedule to sort of start the season, and they've sort of fallen off a little bit. Milwaukee's doing something similar. I don't know. There hasn't, like you said, I think Milwaukee and Boston are clearly the top 2 teams, and then Cleveland right behind them. Brooklyn has made a little bit of a run here too, but Philadelphia and New York, they're 5-6 right now in the Eastern Conference. They're within a game of each other in the standings as of us recording this on Thursday. So, it's going to be a clash. It's going to be really interesting. Let's move on to the next game. Lakers in Dallas. Lakers versus Mavericks in Dallas. This is the 2:30 Eastern game. My big question is, this has been sort of the question for both of these teams all season long. How much help does LeBron get? How much help does Luka get? Who gets more help? That could be what determines who wins this game.
Get out of here. It's going to come down to superstar versus superstar. This is Christmas, baby. Hey, if you look at the slate, it's all good teams in the NBA, except for this game. You're featuring the 10 seed in the Western Conference and the 12 seed in the Western Conference. These are basement dwellers, but guess what? Two of the biggest stars, and I think two of the guys who most step up when the spotlight's on, meaning they both know that basketball, the NBA, is an entertainment business first and foremost. And both of these guys are guys that I expect to have brilliant Christmas Day games. So who helps out? Maybe that determines who, the other guys, maybe that's who determines who wins the game. But I expect both of those guys to go at each other. We've had a lot of great Luka LeBron head-to-heads over the years, and I expect this one to be a classic.
Look, you're absolutely right. This is the game that I'm weirdly, I shouldn't say most excited for, but I am excited for it. There's nothing like watching Luka and LeBron. Like LeBron basically just going toe-to-toe with any star over the last 20 years has always been fun. This one, no different. But in terms of the help, LeBron, he's not getting any three-point shooting. The Mavericks, when they win, they're getting the three-point shooting. They've been sort of floating around average as a three-point shooting team all season long. The big difference with Luka is he doesn't really have anybody else to create a shot. So he's creating all the shots for his team, where LeBron, Anthony Davis is out now, but Anthony Davis was obviously able to create his own offense. But even got guys like, I don't know, Dennis Schroeder and Austin Reeves and just guys like that do stuff. I'm not trying to praise the Lakers role players too much because they're not worthy of it, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where the help comes from.
Here's an underrated storyline though for you, Wes. And I mean, I'm probably reading a little too much into this, but Anthony Davis is going to be out for a while, maybe longer even than originally anticipated. Some reports or some speculation, I should say, that this foot injury might, we might get news that it's going to be an extended absence for him. The Lakers are already down in the lottery right now, closer to getting the Pelicans the number one seed than they are to making it into the playoffs. But I wonder if this almost represents an emotional swan song for LeBron James. It kicks off, that Christmas Day game kicks off the first of a 5-game Eastern Conference road trip where they're going to go to Orlando. By the way, the hottest team in the NBA, Orlando. They've got Miami, Atlanta, and Charlotte. And you're going to do all that without Anthony Davis. Your season's already on the fritz. I wonder if this is one of those ones where LeBron goes out, makes a statement, big game. It might be the hardest we see LeBron play for the next month.
He just takes it. He just cools it after this. He's like, "Hey, I made my Christmas Day statement. I'm still better than Luka," and then that's it.
I mean, look, man, he's already made.
I like the take.
Even for him, he's already made like excessive passive-aggressive comments about you're going to have to ask Pelinka about personnel and this or that. If reinforcements are not on the way, which I don't expect that they are, then yeah, I would not be surprised if LeBron has the statement performance on Christmas and then the statement non-performance in the weeks following.
It might be the best case scenario for LeBron is to just go out there and score like 55 points against the Mavericks in a losing effort. And then he can just, on Christmas Day, on the biggest stage the NBA has, just look up to wherever Rob Pelinka is sitting and just do like a, see,
not
this is
fault.
What you're giving me. And then maybe that pressures him to do something. I don't know. Something passive aggressive would be fun. On Christmas. It would be fun. All right. Who has, between these two games, well, it's in Dallas. It's weird that this is not at Staples Center, isn't it? It's kind of strange.
I mean, it's the Lakers, man. The Lakers have to be better for them to get the home game.
Do they, though? Because
I think so.
Feel like they've had to be over the last few years.
I will say that. No, the NBA, I give them credit for this. They're going to play the Knicks. They're going to play, they're going to play the Lakers. They're going to give those teams. But if you're not good, they absolutely, I feel like this was a little bit of a message to LeBron of like, hey, win more games. We'll let you stay home for Christmas.
Or just play for the Knicks. They need to stay home for Christmas every year.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by this message from the National Highway Safety Administration. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everybody can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you are driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI, paid for by the NHTSA. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Let's jump right back into the Christmas Day slate. Bucks at Celtics, 5 o'clock Eastern time. MVP contenders, Giannis versus Jayson Tatum. That, to me, that's the story. Which one of these guys who are in the conversation for MVP all season long says, hey, I want to make this part of my highlight reel when we start making decisions on who we're voting for at the end of the year. People are going to remember I beat Giannis or I beat Tatum on Christmas Day. That's, to me, what I'm looking for.
It is a narrative, moment for that, for all of the MVP contenders, of which actually a lot of them are playing. But unfortunately for both teams, and especially Boston, this is more of just a get right, figure things out. Boston's lost 5 of their last 6. Their lone win coming at Lakers in overtime. So even though Tatum has been putting up numbers, he's had 2 40-point games, I believe, over the last week. They've been coming in losing or near loss games, including 2 to Orlando and 1 to Indiana. So they've got a game against Minnesota coming up tonight before going to Milwaukee. But to me, this is a story of both teams there's weirdness in the air, I would say, between both teams. With Boston, I think it's mostly you get a couple guys back, you regress offensively. Remember when they were the number 1 offense in the entire history of the NBA? Well, in December so far, they are dead last. Yeah. Did you know that? Dead last in offense.
They went from not being able to miss a shot to not being able to make a shot. It's wild. And I don't know that the schedule is a little bit to do with it. I think just a natural regression has something to do with it. They're probably going to be somewhere in the closer to where they were to start the year, but they're not going to be like that probably all season long.
We'll find out. They need to kind of get a rhythm and start feeling good about themselves again. But I think, to me, weirdly, the more concerning team for me, even though Boston's lost 5 of 6, the more concerning team is Milwaukee, where, Chris Middleton missed a large portion of the start of the season, comes back, and then immediately has tweaks a knee. This is one of those ones where Giannis has carried that team for years, and I'm watching him now put up 2 40-point games in each of his last 2, one of them in a losing effort. And at some point, that gets a little tiresome. I don't think it's going to be on Christmas Day, but that's a team to me that looks like Giannis has had to sprint out of the gate, and there's a lot of season left. I think they need a good vibe and reinforcements on the way to sort of save this middle portion of their season without wearing out Giannis.
I didn't like the way they looked in that loss to the Cavaliers. There was just a bunch of rebounds that they just didn't jump for, box outs that they just didn't do. And you're right. It kind of feels like they're kind of losing some energy or tiring out a little bit here. Now, again, this is the Bucks and the Celtics. They're number 1 and 2 in the Eastern Conference. They're doing just fine. They have 2 of the best records in the NBA, but you expect that they would get up for this game, right? Like the Celtics, they could look at this one as a big stage. Let us get right. Let us, take the crown from the Milwaukee Bucks here and Giannis and all this kind of stuff. And then for the Bucks, if you're not gonna try your hardest in the middle of the week in December in Cleveland, okay, that's fine. But on Christmas, you sort of expect them to do it. Also, this is going to be a big game for the number 1 seed.
Yes.
This is the first meeting between the 2 teams. It's the first of 3. It's one of those situations where they only play 3 times instead of 4. So, a loss tonight or a loss on Christmas for one of these teams, that puts them behind the 8 ball in a potential battle for the number 1 seed come season's end.
I think this is the number 1 game of Christmas, and it's weird that we have an Eastern Conference game that does not feature LeBron James as the marquee game. I feel like it's been forever. But Milwaukee, Boston, I think, both struggling right now, but I think a week ago you would have said consensus number 1 and number 2 teams in the NBA. That probably is still the case, number 1 and number 2 teams in the NBA. But it is it will most likely be for first place and should carry a lot of drama. And I'm glad that it's the middle spot there, that primetime spot.
5 o'clock is when 5 o'clock Eastern. That's a lot of people eating dinner right around that time.
Yeah.
Maybe you're doing it in the dining room, but maybe you got some dinner trays in front of the television.
I don't know if Christmas is the dinner trays in front of the television for everyone. Maybe it is. You know what?
In Boston, probably. They're not going to miss the Celtics game. I don't know.
They're not missing that. I think it's more Christmas. You eat that. Yeah, that's an early meal.
Yeah.
At least in the Mares household. You're eating dinner at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then that way you can watch basketball.
We're usually around 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
4 o'clock. That's right at the end of the Lakers-Mavs games, going right into that Bucks-Celtics game. After that game, maybe for dessert, coffee, little
Okay.
eggnog cocktail at the end there, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Grizzlies, Warriors. That should have been the bet this whole episode is what are we eating
true.
and or drinking during each of these games?
It's not too late to start, Wes.
We can do retroactively. So yeah, we'll do some mimosas in the morning for Philadelphia,
Okay.
New York. 2:30 in the afternoon for me. That's what, 12:30 for you is Lakers Mavs.
Yeah.
That's beer time, right? That's a beer.
A beer already at 12:30? Okay. Getting
What do you mean
beers
already?
are
That's about an hour later than I
belly.
usually go. And then Bucks Celtics is maybe a little bit of wine with dinner.
Okay. That's classy. That's a
Red
classy
wine.
game.
Like a Beaujolais or something. Grizzlies, Warriors, 8 p.m. Like I said, that's cocktail hour, baby. Maybe I'll make like an old fashioned or something.
Yeah, that's a great one.
All right, so for our old fashioned game, man, this would have been so much better had Steph been playing, right?
I mean, of course. I mean, you could say that for any Warriors game ever.
First meeting between these two teams since the playoffs. That was a great series, I thought, when Ja Morant was involved in it. It was a really fun one to watch. But my biggest question is just, what's the Ja Morant highlight going to be that just takes over Twitter for the rest of the night? That's it. That's all I got.
It is. The Warriors, it's funny because they're a good team and they have good players. They have other names, Klay Thompson and, Wiggins and different things. But the excitement of the Warriors completely goes out the window. And they are also in the marquee spot. I mean, that middle game is the marquee. But this one here is like, the evening slot where people are still in front of their couches and watching. And I think this will be the biggest dud of the night. Memphis is a grinded out team. They're also maybe have Desmond Bane, but very likely they will not have him back. We'll see if there's a Christmas surprise. But either way, this does look like a very lopsided matchup in Memphis's favor, in a lopsided star matchup with Ja Morant and having nobody to go against.
Can we talk about Desmond Bane a little bit? Because he goes out there, he tweets the eyeball emoji. Grizzlies fans everywhere like, oh, is he going to be back for Christmas? Most likely not going to be back for Christmas, but if he comes back to the Grizzlies soon-ish, I'm not breaking news by saying that that's going to be a huge addition, but based on how the Grizzlies have played this season and how they've looked so far, so much without Desmond Bane, and Desmond Bane, given how great he looked to start the season, what he was doing, playmaking and all that kind of stuff, obviously the shooting is there. You mentioned the Grizzlies as a grinded out team. Bane really opens up things for this team.
I mean, yeah, for sure. They need to be able to shoot the ball. They just lost to Denver on national television on Tuesday night, and it was one of those games where Denver, who has not been a good defensive team all year, played phenomenal defensively, in large part because of how they were able just to stack the paint, force Ja Morant to drive into a crowd. He still had a great game, but it shut down their offense and grinded it to a halt. And you're right. I think they're a completely different team when they do have their shooters making shots and also, importantly, available to them. So to me, you're right that this game might be the worst game of the night, and it still might be a 15-point Grizzlies win, 100-85.
Yeah, I mean, that it could be. Just also when we're talking about who's playing at home and who's not, the Warriors play on Christmas every single season because of Steph, but it had been a couple of years there when they were losing, where they were getting the road assignment on Christmas. Steve Kerr last year, I think it was, basically saying like, hey, I don't mind playing on Christmas. I think it's a great honor. Can we get one of these to be a home game? You got your wish. Chase Center, Christmas Day. I think it's the first one at Chase Center, I believe. Just a little X's and O's thing. They've been using Jonathan Kuminga in some interesting defensive situations. Like they'll put him on Giannis one night. They'll put him on Luka another night. They just kind of use him as like a stopper. I don't know that he is yet, but because of his athleticism, his lateral quickness, and obviously the size and strength, like, do they put Jonathan Kuminga on Ja Morant? Like, that to me is just, and they probably will at some point, but how much do they do it? That to me is just something to watch there in terms of Kuminga's development. All right.
Either way, two of the best defensive players in the NBA in this game, and obviously Draymond Green, but Jaren Jackson Jr. to me is probably the best defender I've seen so far. Not that I've been able to watch everybody as closely, of course, throughout the NBA, but I was so impressed with what I've seen from him defensively. Perimeter, interior, the way he's able to close space and get blocks on chase downs. That guy is an incredible defender.
2 Spartans too, right?
That's right.
So the 2 best defenders in the league, Tom Izzo kind of guys. Tom Izzo's elf costume, does that show up on Christmas? That's another good question.
Let's hope not.
Phoenix and Denver. You know, Adam's going to have some stuff to say about that and maybe a Nikola Jokic story that's coming up next. But first, today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball, they have it all at betonline.net. So if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Make sure to tune in on Monday for a recap of these Christmas Day games. But we're going to talk about our questions for the last of the Christmas slate. Phoenix at Denver. The Suns visiting your Denver Nuggets, Adam. It's the 10:30 game for me, the 8:30 game for you. What's our cocktail for this one? Is that still just rolling right along from cocktail hour of Grizzlies Warriors, or is it?
What is the nightcap? I think actually, you know what it is? It's a shot of rakia. Okay. Serbian liquor, a little shot of rakia. Sip on slowly.
Did that make an appearance in the documentary?
Of course it did. You know it did. Of course.
I could go with like a port here or something. Maybe even like
you know what? Rakia is a little bit like port. It's a brandy wine, so I'll meet you halfway.
Brandy wine time. Suns at Nuggets. What's the biggest storyline here?
Well, this is a rematch of 2 seasons ago, Denver and Phoenix. Phoenix getting the sweep, the famous Suns in 4 game. It's the 2 teams, when you kind of look at the generations here, you had that Warriors generation, Lakers generation. You have now New Orleans and Memphis as the new upstarts. I feel like the teams that are caught in between that are Phoenix and Denver. They're not the young teams, but they're also, they're sort of there in their moment. Yeah. You get Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray missed the last game, but he'd been hobbled for ones previous to that. Michael Porter has missed the last several weeks. Those guys are set to make their return for Denver tomorrow. So it might be the first time we've seen the Denver Nuggets complete since the first or second week of the season. It's been quite a while. So that's one storyline. And then on the other side, Phoenix is a team that has been good all year, but has also just been dealing with the injury bug a little bit lately. But they're only down to 19-13, meaning even though they've slid a little bit, going 4-6 in their last 10, they're within striking distance. And we just mentioned that Boston-Milwaukee game might be for first place. There's an outside chance that this game will be for first place. Denver number 1, Phoenix number 4, but within striking distance of all the teams ahead of them. So this might also be that 1 versus 2 matchup that would add a little weight to it.
Seeing potentially Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray for the first time, like you said, maybe seeing new Suns owner Matt Ishbia for the first time on this game.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, set your alarm.
Get your popcorn, kids. We got a new mortgage broker in the house.
Little weird technical thing. Jokic, how he defends the CP3, Devin Booker pick and roll stuff. That's always interesting to watch and boring to talk about on podcast, but interesting to watch in real time. Maybe by this amount of cocktails, I won't be paying that much attention to the technical stuff like that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
This is also Jokic has been so overwhelmingly awesome for the last few years, but Christmas has not always been his best day. And last Christmas, the Nuggets didn't play on Christmas.
Yeah, the MVP. I don't remember the last time the reigning MVP did not get a Christmas Day game, but he wasn't even on.
2 years ago did play on Christmas against the Pelicans, but that was pandemic season. It's weird. No fans. It was like the second game of the season. Like nobody cared. The year before that, I think he played, but that was before all that being the MVP, right? That was before back-to-back MVPs. He's a much different, better, higher profile player now. This is, to me, a big opportunity for Nikola Jokic, who is still sort of like, he's not a casual fans NBA player, right? Like he's still sort of like, all right, dweeb, you really watch the NBA in the regular season, I guess. Like that's like the kind of player that Nikola Jokic is right now, at least by reputation. This is a chance for him to really just come out and just be like, you know what? Like I'm a lot of fun. Everybody's going to enjoy watching me play. This is sort of a star moment for him. I know it's the late game, but still, like I think this is a big moment for him, given how disappointing and maybe not having the chance on Christmas the way that a lot of MVPs tend to have them. This is his first back-to-back MVPs, Christmas Day game, big one. This is a stage for him.
Wes, he does not care. He does not care at all about winning over the hearts and minds of the NBA fans outside of Denver. And to be honest, probably even inside of Denver. And more importantly, while this is our Christmas, it is not Nikola Jokic's Christmas. He does not go off of our calendar. He goes off of the revised Julian calendar, also the Serbian Orthodox calendar, and his Christmas is January 7th. So for Jokic, this isn't a Christmas Day game. It's just a Sunday game, just any other Sunday one. And by the way, you think I'm joking here, but we've actually tracked this here in Denver. He always gets up for those games around January 7th because for him, it's his Christmas. He celebrates it on a different day.
So they've got home games January 6th against Cleveland and then January 9th against the Lakers. So use that Prize Picks code, go the over on all the Nikola Jokic stats on those two games.
I think it's really the first one, the 6th, because then you celebrate Christmas afterwards, and then that Laker game afterwards, hungover. Too much rakia.
Too much rakia for the Lakers. All right, let's get to our countdown. It is Friday, and as always, we count down to the weekend. Adam, what is our power rankings this week?
We're going to do top performers on Christmas as predicted by me. Who do I think will be the top performers? We were talking about this before we went live. This is very nearly a perfect slate in terms of all of the biggest stars. I think the two guys who are missing from this list are Kevin Durant and Zion Williamson, admittedly two big omissions. You know, those guys would be great. But you do get a lot of star power, and I'm going to start with my honorable mentions for who I think is just going to miss the top 5. And listen to these names. Devin Booker, I don't know if he'll be a top 5 performer coming off of injury. Jayson Tatum, maybe not, but you're going up against Giannis. That's going to be a defensive battle. You got good defenders there. And then I have Nikola Jokic, who very well could put up some big numbers, but we'll see. I don't know if he's going to be one of the guys that's the top performer. So Booker, Tatum, Jokic, 3 MVP candidates, and they didn't even crack the top 5. Wow. That's what kind of star power we have.
So let's get right into it. Number 5.
Ja Morant. Ja Morant. We just mentioned going up against Golden State. Yes, they have some defensive prowess, but I'm telling you, Ja Morant, he can score on even the best defenses. He's on the Christmas Day stage. This is a big moment for Ja, and I think he is going to go off.
We'll see what your next 4 are, but this might be too low.
It might be too low.
Yeah.
Number 4, going with LeBron James. I'm going with the theory that LeBron is going to make this his swan song in terms of effort. He's going all out. He's making a statement. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 50-piece, and it's kind of a sad one, a sad 50.
A sad 50. It can't be called a 50 burger if it's sad. It's like a 50 broccoli.
50 broccoli. We might get a 50 broccoli from him.
Might get a 50 broccoli. LeBron James, highest scorer ever on Christmas Day games. He's got 422 career points on Christmas. It's the most ever. Shout out to Dwayne Wade, number 4. Just got the Hall of Fame acceptance there, or whatever. All right.
I like it. Number 3, I'm going with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yes, he's going up against Boston. Yes, it'll be a tough game, but you know what? Giannis is a big-time player. It's Christmas. The league is his. I think he has a big night.
I think you're right. The way that he's been playing lately, 45 points the other night against Cleveland. What he's doing is just crazy. You know that he takes games like this really seriously. It wasn't a Christmas game, but it was a primetime game a couple years ago against LeBron, putting the crown on his head, this whole thing. It kind of feels like Tatum's trying to come for it for Giannis, and now Giannis is the guy at the top, and it's his chance to just sort of stiff arm him off the mountain. And I think I'm with you. I think he could. I couldn't take both Tatum and Giannis, so I had to put Tatum as honorable mention. Giannis, I think, goes off. Fair enough.
Number 2, the morning game. Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid is in line for a big performance. Not only is he going up against some skinny guys in the front court over with the Knicks, some guys he should be able to bully, draw fouls against, but he's also just been on a scoring heater lately. And I don't know how closely you follow these things, Wes, but I've been seeing the straw polls. I've been seeing the MVP ladders. Embiid's always shockingly low. Lower than you would expect.
He's think the leading scorer in the NBA, and he's the only reason the Sixers are any good right now. Like, James Harden's played, 15, 16 games, something like that? Yeah. I mean, Embiid, I'm with you. I'm surprised by how much we're not taking him seriously. I think this is one of those games where he inserts himself back into the MVP conversation. We know it's important to him. But he's number 2. He's not number 1. And I said I couldn't put Tatum and Giannis, so I had to pick one. That is not necessarily the case of the LeBron-Luka matchup. Luka,
He is a guy that loves to play. And even though it's not his Christmas either, by the way, he is also going on the Eastern Orthodox calendar, the Julian calendar. Nonetheless, Luka, unlike Jokic, does enjoy the spotlight. And I do think that the way he's been playing this year, the numbers he's been putting up, going up against LeBron, I expect that to be a showdown and one that he wins and maybe even wins the stat battle.
I love it. Luka getting up for Christmas. Luka versus LeBron, both in the top 5. This sounds good, man. And I think you get back to something you said earlier. We're not missing a whole lot of guys on Sunday. It's Durant, which would be great to see him the way that he's been playing, and Zion, and ditto for him. But for the most part, look, Christmas Day is about mostly it's about stars, and the stars are Luka, LeBron, Giannis, Tatum, Jokic. Was supposed to be Steph, Ja Morant, Madison Square Garden. Those are the stars, right? Joel Embiid. We're getting all of them. Every single game, as we just covered, has something going for it. All right, can I put together a small, quick countdown myself. I know you're usually in charge of this segment, but can I interest you in my own countdown?
Please, what is it?
I'm going to power rank the top 5 Christmas cookies. All right, let's go quickly through them.
Let's do it. I didn't know there was 5 Christmas cookies, so I'm excited for this.
In my research, I found a list of like 30 cookies, and there's a whole bunch of them that I've never heard of before, and I just didn't include them. So I'm sure that this list will go over well with everybody, and nobody will disagree with me. Number 5 is just anything with peppermint. It feels like, peppermint is just it's there. You can make chocolate chip peppermint cookies. You could just do a peppermint cookie. You could do a peppermint this and that.
I don't like peppermint as a sweet flavor. That's toothpaste.
Right. It's very hit or miss, and that's why it's as low as 5. And so that's why it's there. Number 4 is gingerbread. I like gingerbread. It's seasonal.
Staple.
It's a staple. It's seasonal. It gets points for novelty, right? Like if you eat gingerbread, a gingerbread cookie in July, like they might take you to prison. Like that's
right. Yeah, that's weird.
So, but it's also very filling. So you can only have like one gingerbread cookie. It's like a dense biscuit. Number 3.
So dense.
So dense, man. Number 3, snickerdoodle. I love a snickerdoodle.
A good call.
Yeah. Number 3 is a snickerdoodle.
I think better as a candle smell than as a cookie, but you know what? I'll allow it.
Did you have your top 5 candle smells ready to go? Or
I've got that one ready to go if you need it.
You're just waiting for me to ask you. Finally. Number 2, a sugar cookie with frosting.
Yes, there you go. That's a great call. That Christmas frosting, man. That's a great one.
And number 1 is a sugar cookie without frosting.
Yeah, it's just a classic. And why make it too good?
A little bit of powdered sugar. Why make it too good?
A little too tasty. I do. In shambles for my fellow Hispanics that you did not have biscochitos on there, a Mexican Christmas staple.
Okay, I should have had them on there. All right, biscochitos. Let's knock peppermint off of there.
Get out of here, peppermint.
That's it. Get out of here, peppermint. That'll do it for us today. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On NBA wherever you listen to podcasts for 30 minutes of the NBA's top stories every day. Until next Friday, you can find me over at Locked On Heat. Adam's over on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks again, making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. And everybody, whatever it is that you celebrate, whenever it is that you celebrate, have a happy holiday. Merry Christmas, Adam.
Merry Christmas.